Hey guys, it's Drummond. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you know whenever I'm posting my next video. So I want to start this video just by saying this world is fucked up. The fact that we live in a world where white privilege is a thing and people of other minority statuses have to suffer through so many different things just because they're not white is just insane. I was actually talking to one of my friends about posting this video, and they actually told me that it was going to be a career suicide because apparently talking about this subject is something that is off the list of topics you're allowed to talk about on YouTube. But I'm going to make this video anyway because I think it's really important that a lot of people see this type of video on the internet because it's something that needs to be fixed. First off, I want to say that if you are white, you have white privilege. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you are white, you have white privilege. When I say you have white privilege, I am not saying that you are handed a castle or a mansion or tons of property or tons of money just because you're white. But what I am saying is that there are certain things in life that you are given because you are white, and there are things that you won't have to fight for because you are white. I am not saying that you don't have to work hard to achieve certain things, but I am saying that the other people that are not white will have to fight even harder for things that you might have been handed because you were white. I've had this argument with a lot of different people across social media just because it is kind of a topic that people have very strong opinions about. I shared a video on my Facebook a couple years ago where it kind of had this teacher standing in front of a class and he had them all stand on a line. And he had people step forward if they'd never experienced certain things. And some of the things he said was, step forward if you've never had to worry about where your dinner's coming from. Step forward if both of your parents are still together. Step forward if you have a job. Step forward. And he had everyone stepping forward. And one thing that you noticed was a lot of people in the minority groups were still standing on the original line. And a lot of the white kids were stepping really close to the end. In the video, the teacher was holding a $100 bill and he was saying that he's letting people step forward and it's a race to get to the $100 bill. And the point of the video was to show that there are some people that have a lot of disadvantages stacked against them, and for them to get to that $100 bill, they'd have to run a lot faster than the people who kept taking steps forwards because they don't experience any of the negative things that impact some of the people in minority groups. When I posted that, I got a lot of responses from people on my Facebook, and a lot of people were saying that they're tired of people using their minority statuses as a crutch and a reason for why they're not getting further in life. And to be honest, that is something that they have to overcome. Those people do have to work harder to get where white people are just sat on the playing board already just because they're white. One discussion that I had with one of my friends was the fact that if you go back generations, white people have been in power for many generations. So what I mean by that is when it comes to people who have owned property, when it's come to people having the right to go to school, when it comes to people having an education at all, white people's generations can go back several generations. When it comes to people in the African American minority, a lot of those people, you only have to step back a few generations before you get to the point where education wasn't something that they were allowed to have. So for them, they had to overcome that crutch. And that's something that's still affecting them generations later because those people didn't have anything to build on top of. I don't think a lot of people realize that just because we are working hard as a generation right now doesn't mean that it wasn't previous generations' hard work that kind of got us to where we are now. So when it comes to people who, if you jump back a few generations, they were slaves, you have to realize that those people had to build up from being slaves to where they are now. Whereas white people, they are building up from either being plantation owners, business owners, or people who moved over here with money from other countries over in Europe. And I think a lot of people are looking at it as a stationary thing right now. So saying that Black people, white people, Hispanic people, and people of other minorities have equal foot now. But what they're not looking at is when it comes to the history and the things that have gotten us to where we are right now. So an example discussion that I've had recently was with my cousin's husband. He was actually talking to me about how he doesn't believe that he has been handed anything in life because he was white. He believed that he worked hard for everything that he's got in life. And I was talking to him, I was just like, you're a perfect example of what white privilege is, because he is a vice president at his dad's company, which was his dad's company, and the company before that belonged to his dad. So using that as an example, you'll see that yes, he probably went to college, went to school, had to work really hard to get good grades, and wanted to impress his dad. But at the end of the day, he had a company that he could take over from his dad. When you take people of different minority groups and put them in that same situation, maybe their mom was working at McDonald's and also took a second job so that she could afford to put food on the table. You can't really pass a job down at McDonald's to your kids. So that mom is working super hard to provide for her family, but she doesn't have anything to give to the next generation because she is working with everything that she's got right now. And she just really hopes that one day her kids will one day be able to go to college and get a better job so that they can one day provide for their family and hopefully create something that they can pass down to the next generation. When I first started this channel, I actually posted a video about racism, and I made a lot of ignorant statements in that video. And I had a roommate at the time that really called me out on it. I didn't really believe that anything that I said could have been taken as racism or showing off that I had white privilege. But after looking back at that video with the knowledge that I have now about white privilege, I've started to realize that some of the statements I made were very ignorant. Like, I made a statement about how I walked into an IHOP in Richmond, Virginia, where pretty much everyone in the restaurant was black, and my sisters and I were the only 3 white people in there. And I said that I got a taste of what it felt like to deal with racism. And now looking back at that situation, I'm realizing that maybe I got a small taste of what it feels like to feel uncomfortable in a situation where maybe I'm a minority instead of the majority or something of that sense. But when it comes to what racism is, it is completely different. It wasn't until I started working at Best Buy and met my friend Paula, who kind of explained it to me in a way that I could understand it as a white person. She told me that when she was little, her mom used to tell her that because she was black, that she needed to be on her best behavior no matter what, because the world is more forgiving to white people than it is to black people. So when it came to her hanging out with her friends, she went into it with the mindset of, I have to be good no matter what, because when my friends do bad things, they're going to get away with things because they're white, whereas because I'm black, the cops and people of authority are going to look at me as someone who is up to no good. And it sucks that we live in a world where the stereotype is people of minority statuses are up to no good and people who are white are just misbehaving and they can be easily fixed. An example that I like to use to kind of help people understand what it means to have white privilege versus growing up in a minority where you are kind of having to fight for everything that you get. White people start up here, whereas anyone in a minority group starts down here. So if a white person starts doing something, we say that they've fallen from up here. When a person of a minority group does something good, we're saying that they've started down here and they're slowly climbing up here. So when it comes to being in a minority group that's starting down here, it doesn't take a lot for them to do something wrong and kind of be labeled with the stereotype of bad and not good. And when it comes to a white person starting up here, they can do a couple bad things and it might lower them a little bit, but they can bounce right back up here. So I can understand why people are frustrated in minority groups. I can understand why they're angry. Could you imagine having to tell your child, hey, you're gonna have to work even harder because you are not white? When I was working in a retail store, I actually had a mom start talking to me about how she cried every single night because when her kids were little, they came home crying and asked their mom if she could make them white because they were being picked on at school for being black. And that's heartbreaking. The fact that there are children out there that just wish to be white because they just want to be treated normal and not be treated like they're bad just because of the way that they were born. Since I started doing life coaching, I know that the psychology behind belief is really important in the way that people think of themselves. There's no wonder why the crime rates are higher in minority groups, because right from the beginning, the stereotypes are that people in minority groups are bad. People in minority groups are going to be the people who are getting in trouble. And to be honest, when we look at society, that's the way that we treat people. So of course they're going to get into trouble because right from the very beginning, they're labeled as bad. They're labeled as people that are more likely going to get in trouble. When it comes to police brutality, which is something that we are seeing a lot of these days, it's hard to be a minority and have to deal with the cops because you are already stereotyped to be in the wrong. So even if you are innocent, you are afraid to deal with the cops because right now you're already guilty until you prove yourself innocent, Whereas when you're white, you're innocent until proven guilty, and that's a very messed up system. So until we can fix that system, we're gonna have problems with our minority groups trying to fight back for equality. I saw a post on Facebook where not too long ago, they were showing a picture of a white guy holding a gun, pointing it at the cops, and the cops were telling him he needed to put the gun down. And then right underneath of it, it was showing how people of minority statuses don't even have to have a gun visible, and the cops already have their guns drawn and shooting. When it comes to that situation, I understand that when it comes to being a cop, you are putting your life on the line every single day. I definitely don't believe that I could be a cop just because what they do is extremely dangerous, and I definitely applaud them for their hard work and putting their lives on the line. But we need to make sure that we are putting people in those positions that don't have their mind made up that people of minority statuses are automatically bad. They need to be treating everyone equal, and honestly, there are a lot of good people out there, and the media, of course, is going to blow it up to where it makes a lot of cops look bad. But in that situation, it is something that needs to be addressed. We do need to make sure that when it comes to people of minority groups getting in trouble, or people in minority groups getting into situations where maybe they're doing something wrong, the cop's first reaction isn't pull out the gun and shoot. Every single argument I've heard so far where people are trying to defend cops, it comes off extremely racist, because a lot of times they're saying, well, the numbers show this and the numbers show that. And if I can be frank right now, it doesn't matter what the numbers show. Just because one person does something doesn't mean that this person does something. And the fact that we are saying that people of minority statuses have a higher rate of doing something wrong, can we look at the mass shootings that we've had in the United States? Most of those are white people. There's a lot of white people doing a lot of wrong things as well, but somehow our stereotype isn't that we're dangerous. So I think I'm going to end the video here, but before I go, I just want to say that we really do need to fix this problem in the United States, in the world. Racism should not be a thing. White privilege should not be a thing. We need to be educating people on this, and we need to be calling people out when they are saying things that are racist or ignorant. And I know that it's possible that something that I've said in this video might have offended somebody, and I might be coming from a place of ignorance on a lot of things. But the reason that I'm posting this video is because I do realize it's a problem, and it's something that needs to be shared. So if you like this video, make sure you share it so that other people can see it. If you haven't already, make sure you go follow me on my other social medias. I have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. I'm usually pretty good at posting on those and responding to people who reach out to me there. But hopefully you guys are having a good week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.